Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to speak on this bill, which stands in the name of the Honorable Prime Minister, Mark Phillips, who is not with us. And Mr. Speaker, I did so in relation to the data protection bill as well, but I omitted to say so for the record. I hope that we can correct it. So, Mr. Speaker, a digital identity card has been in the public domain for quite some time now. A few months ago, members will recall that our government entered into a contract with a company called Veridos, a company out of Mexico, owned by the German government, a company out of Saudi Arabia, as well as, the UAE, as well as a company out of Mexico. And they have been producing cards of this type for countries across the globe. Again, Mr. Speaker, this is another fundamental step that our government is taking in the direction of digitizing business in the public sector, and naturally it will have an impact in the private sector, and also moving our central government systems into an electronic and digital mode. An important indicator in today's world, sir, is the ease of doing business. In fact, the World Bank uses that now as an indicator by which countries' governance and public services are measured and countries are ranked. Guyana has been pursuing various initiatives across the public sector spectrum intended and designed to make business easier, or make the conduct of business easier, in particular in relation to central government and the state apparatus. Also, with the advent of our oil and gas sector and the commercial expansion taking place in our country, the growth of our economy, the influx of foreign investors and foreigners, we need to protect our citizens, we need to protect our systems, and we need to enhance national security. All of these objectives, Mr. Speaker, are intended to be addressed with the advent of this card. This card, Mr. Speaker, will tie in smoothly with our data protection law that we have just passed. So you will have, in due time, a digital reservoir of personal information from which we can draw as a country to satisfy any data requirements. The card will draw from that pool, and the bill that is before us is to create the legal framework, the legal infrastructure that will govern the issuance, the operationalization, the efficacy, and the use of the card. The card will be, and that's what the bill does, essentially. And it lays out clause by clause how that will be done. Countries across the world, of course, as I've indicated, have been using this card for a long time now. If I can make quick reference to the United States, has been using the Social Security card since 1936. India, they use a card called the Aadhaar card. And there are many, many countries that I have here listed that are using a card. What this card simply is or will be a card that will contain a chip that will host certain basic information of the citizen, a unique ID number will be generated by the provider of the card and will be assigned to each citizen, and that number will be unique to that particular citizen. And basic biometric and biographic data with a pictorial representation of the citizen will be on the card. But the card will have, by a chip, the ability to access peculiar details of the citizen wherever the card is presented. Not only will it be an ID card, but it will be a key to open the personal data file of every citizen wherever that data is kept or wherever that citizen would like to transact business. So your personal data. So you go with that card to the GRA, for example, and you present that card, and all your tax information will come up, your driver's license, all documents issued by the GRA and all information that GRA holds on your behalf or for you will be accessed by that card. You go to NIS, the same thing, your NIS number and everything else, whatever service the NIS offers, you will be able to access it by that card. And you will go government department by government department, and you will be able to access all government services by the use of that one card. So you don't have to duplicate. It will also have other information such as your passport information, etc. At the private sector level, the same thing will apply. If you go to the bank, all your banking information, etc., the bank will be able to access by the use of that card. So you don't have to walk with many, many different cards, etc., etc. It is expected that the card will be issued to Guyanese who are 14 years and over across the country. And there's a structure that will be established that will handle or manage the issuance and monitoring and distribution of the card right across Guyana. And every citizen will be compelled to participate in this process because the card is going to be a national medium by which one will be able to interact commercially and in the public sector as well. The card, to register for the card, all of that is laid down in the Act. You will have to produce your source documents, your birth certificate, or your national ID card or your passport, as the case may be. And the process is very akin to the process one has to undergo to register on the National Registration Database under the Registration Act. And there are centers that will be established right across the country so that citizens can register easily. Once you are issued with that card, of course, you will be allowed to update information on the card, your biographic information that will be um, on the face of the card itself. And if there are any changes within the data system, those changes will be made, of course, and the card stays with you until you die. Eventually, it is hoped that that number that is assigned when we have the system up and running, then that one number will be a unique number that will attach to all your documents. Eventually, that's a long-term plan, but for the time being, you will still maintain your various numbers. Your pension book number will remain the same. Your NIS number will remain the same. Your TIN number will remain the same, etc. But so health record, sorry, the health record is an important component of this. As I indicated when I was speaking about the data protection bill, we are digitizing your health record. So when you turn up at any health facility and they have your data stored, this is the card that will allow them to know who you are, what is your medical history, and whatever medical data they require of you to offer you whatever treatment that you seek. So then another important component of the, well, another aspect of the bill is that it deals with non-Guyanese who are legitimately in Guyana working. As I said, we anticipate we're going to have a large influx of foreign workers in Guyana. The trend has begun, and from all indications, it will only intensify going forward. This card will ensure that we are able to monitor all the persons who are coming to Guyana to work. They will have a card of this type that will enable them also, once they are legitimately here, to access the same services to which I have made reference. Of course, the card will expire once their work permit expires. And unless that is extended, then once they are found with that card, one will be able to, or they try to use that card immediately, the immigration authorities and the other relevant agencies will be notified that that person is not legal in Guyana. Of course, there is a number of categories of persons who are exempted from work permit, as they are exempted under our current laws. For example, under the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, you have all the categories of professionals who do not require work permits throughout the Caribbean. Naturally, they will be exempted because as our current law, we're not changing anything. And it's just to replace that work permit document now with a card and to put the infrastructure in place so that we can monitor people across the country to determine their status in the country. So, Mr. Speaker, but lastly, this card will not be, while it will be a national identification card, it will not be a substitute for the national identification card. It will be another form of ID, but it will not replace the national identification card, which is currently issued by the Commissioner of Registration or the CEO of GCOM. That process remains untouched by this bill, and I want to assure of that. And Mr. Speaker, once this bill, as I said, we will have to take some time to get that infrastructure built out, to get all the platforms ready, to build the administrative structure, to get the people who have to do the cards, they have to set up the platforms across the country. The reason why this bill is so urgent is because we have to get this in place before the infrastructure begins to be built. And we have contractual obligations that are time-bound, and that is why we had to, with haste, try to complete this bill tonight so that we don't, well, this morning, so that we don't breach our contractual obligations under the contract that we have with the Veridos company. So, Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I commend that this bill be read a second time. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Attorney General.